Hi folks, David Duncan here, President of the American Battlefield Trust. I'm sure you're familiar with the phrase, so close we can taste it. Well, that's where we are today at one of the most important and significant battlefield preservation efforts in the history of the battlefield preservation movement. I'm referring to the American Battlefield Trust's effort to save nearly 600 acres at the dual battlefields of Gaines's Mill, 1862, and Cold Harbor, 1864. When I started at the Trust more than 25 years ago, I thought I was being clever by asking people, what's the most important unprotected piece of battlefield ground in the country? And universally, unanimously, everyone said it was this particular piece of battlefield ground. At that time, 25 years ago, it was more of a dream than a plan. Our board decided 5 years ago to take on this project when the landowner finally decided, after many, many years of cultivation, that they were ready to protect this property with a conservation easement. And in those 5 years, every time we have asked for your help, you have come through for us. I'm hoping that you'll be able to come through one more time to help us save this priceless, priceless piece of American history. To help sweeten that deal just a little bit, we have worked out a very special arrangement with the leading historian on the Battle of Gaines's Mill, Robert E. Lee Krick, best known to us as Bobby Krick. Some of you have already donated to receive Volume 1 of his truly landmark study of the Battle of Gaines's Mill. Volume 1 was called To the Banks of the Chickahominy. I am personally reading it right now. I'm about 150 pages in, and man, it's good. And I've heard from other people who've received it who understand and agree that it's now the generational account of the Battle of Gaines's Mill. Today, if you can help us with a gift of $100 or more to help raise the final $184,000 we need to close the books on this project, I'll be happy to send you Volume 2, The Race Against the Setting Sun. And again, together these two volumes make up about 1,000 pages of superior scholarship on that battle. Thank you very, very much for all that you have done over these last 5 years to help us save the most important unprotected piece of battlefield ground in America. Very soon we're not going to be able to say that anymore because it's going to be protected thanks to you. Let's head out onto the battlefield with some very, very good friends who are going to tell us a little bit more about this extremely important piece of hallowed ground. Hi folks, I am walking on two American Civil War battlefields. The first one is the Gaines's Mill battlefield of 1862, and the second battlefield is Cold Harbor of 1864. I am literally at the intersection of those two battlefields. The amount of lead that was flying across this ground at 1862 was almost unimaginable as the Confederates pushed the last remnant of McClellan's army off of this side of the Chickahominy River. I believe at Gaines's Mill, the entire battle had something like 15,000 casualties. Was the second largest battle on the American continent up to that time, Shiloh being the first. So that was 1862. And then in 1864, on exactly the same ground, and I mean exactly the same ground, the armies that had been oriented east-west were oriented 90 degrees differently north-south. Those two events on this particular ground is what makes this place so incredibly special. And if you can see behind me too, it is absolutely pristine, this property. This is unique just about anywhere else in America. You had a couple of major battles, of course, fought on the same ground at Manassas, but nowhere else in the country right now are there nearly 600 acres of pristine, unpreserved battlefield land.
By my count, this 75-acre woodlot saw fighting from parts of 16 different brigades in the 5.5-hour Battle of Gaines's Mill. 8 Union brigades, or parts of 8 Union brigades, and parts of 8 Confederate brigades. And to illustrate the point about the woods assisting the Union defense, the largest brigade in Robert E. Lee's army on June the 27th, Alexander Lawton's All Georgia Brigade, 6 regiments, 3,500 men, most of them armed with Enfield rifles, so they had great firepower and size. They entered the north edge of Griffin's Woods, aiming toward Bosun's Creek, the south branch of which is right here over my shoulder, aiming for the Federal line of defense, which was just to the right of the camera on a high hill. And within 15 minutes, Lawton's 6 regiments had broken into 4 physically unconnected pieces, some of which wound up a mile away after getting lost here in Griffin's Woods. So the woods were a great enemy of formations and strength and cohesiveness and organization. The 3rd Pennsylvania Reserves of George Meade's brigade, the 4th New Jersey was in there, the 11th Pennsylvania Reserves, those 3 regiments, just those 3 that I named, among the men of those 3 regiments, they probably fired more than 100,000 rounds of small arms directly over my head in the course of the firefight that took place here toward twilight on June the 27th, just from those 3 regiments. The most famous casualty in the entire Battle of Gaines's Mill fell right in this vicinity as well, and that would be not a general. There were no generals killed at Gaines's Mill, but rather Major Rob Wheat of the Louisiana Tigers, famous soldier of fortune, kind of a land pirate, large, bluff, hearty man. And here at Gaines's Mill, the Louisiana Brigade, not commanded by Wheat, commanded by someone else, had its worst day of the war. Crossed the creek right where we're standing, took severe small arms fire, and panicked and fled back across the stream. And Major Wheat was so appalled by the performance, he refused to retreat and was somewhere here within sight of where the camera is today when he was shot dead on the ground. He supposedly said, "Bury me on the field, boys," his famous last words. And the following week, his sister came to retrieve his remains, found that his famous last words and respected them, and so she left him where he was here on this ground and erected a granite monument to him as his grave, the first monument on the Gaines's Mill battlefield, July of 1862. One of the most notable professional journalists in the South, Felix D. Fontaine, toured the entire battlefield the week afterwards, and he singled out these woods for special attention. He called it a pestilential position. I don't know if he was thinking of it from the Confederate point of view or the Union point of view, but he concluded his description of these woods by saying that you could not walk for 500 yards in any direction without finding and still find any tree that did not bear the marks of a bullet. Every tree within a 500-yard radius of where you would stand had bullet-riddled trees. He said, in conclusion, there is no place just like this on the continent. Griffin's Woods, which is the far tree line in front of you, probably 800 yards from here, was now being swept clear of defenders. Confederates were popping out into this field and chasing fugitives across the field, all of them aiming toward the cannon line just behind the camera. The scene would be hard to replicate. A Union observer, a non-combatant, who came up the backside of the ridge and looked over the top at this point in the battle, said, "I came to where I could look over the crest of the hill, and as if I had looked into the crater of a volcano or down the fabled abyss into hell, the whole grand horror of the battle burst upon my sight. For a moment I could neither feel nor think." Well, the drama reached its crescendo when Confederates formed up around the Watt House, just the other side of the trees to the left front of the camera. About 1,000 men, mostly 18th Georgia from Hood's Texas Brigade, but also some Texans and some Mississippians and some Alabamians and some Virginians, all cobbled together, all of them attacking right into the lens of your camera, trying to capture the line of cannon just behind the camera. Confederates got about halfway, about to where this non-historic tree line is situated in front of you. They stopped for a final rest to steel their courage before swarming up the hill. Lieutenant Colonel Ruff of the 18th Georgia, I think he was the animating spirit in this attack, stood up on the edge of the swale down there and said, "Come on, Georgians, let's let them taste some cold steel," meaning the bayonets. And the men let out a tremendous cheer, came racing right toward the camera, and suddenly, dramatically, the ground began to tremble like an earthquake, according to one Texan, and suddenly, from the left, off the sight of the camera, from the west, Union cavalry materialized onto the battlefield. This is an infantry field. Suddenly, an injection of 230 horsemen of the 5th United States Cavalry made a desperate charge right into the side of the Confederate attackers. Their purpose was to cause a diversion, which it certainly did. The cavalry were trying to sacrifice themselves to save the guns, and it was a colossal failure. For one thing, no one had told the artillerists that this was going to happen, and so they were puzzled and bemused. The Confederate infantry simply pivoted, probably right where I'm standing, fired several volleys into the mounted men of the 5th U.S. Cavalry, killed more than 100 horses, knocked down 6 of the 7 officers in the 5th U.S. Cavalry. Cavalry charge dissolved and faded away. The Confederates regrouped and right here launched themselves in the final desperate charge against roaring cannon. Chance alone dictated whether a man was obliterated by canister or lived to fight another day. All of those things happened on this field. And as time goes by, it gets increasingly difficult to capture the drama and the intensity of what happened. We get farther and farther away from the 1860s, and the solution for that is to stand on the ground where it happened, and it becomes very plain and clear.
Part of the trick with this park is that we've got so much history all around us, but we just have little chunks of land, pieces of the puzzle. And as more things get preserved, we get to see more of it, and more of those pieces fall into place, and we get to tell more stories. It's a great reason to have a park. It's a great reason for preservation. And that's really what we do here. And flash forward 2 years to 1864, when Confederates are counterattacking to my right towards the Cold Harbor crossroads. Kit South Carolinians came right through here, trying to dislodge the Federals from their capture of the crossroads. This did not work. It failed in spectacular fashion, and you can imagine now Confederates streaming back and taking up new position about 300 yards that way in what's now the park unit of the Richmond National Battlefield Park. Also, later that evening, on June 1st, 1864 now, the 2nd Connecticut Heavy Artillery under Emory Upton is going to pass right through here, making their major attack towards the Confederate lines in the park. So this is battlefield land that is important not just to one campaign, but to 2 battles, 2 different campaigns. And in Cold Harbor, it's important 2 different times. The Confederate counterattack towards the crossroads and the June 1st Union assault. So this is crucial land, one of those important pieces of the puzzle that'll help us tell a much larger story, especially as we get into more modern and recent scholarship that can do more than we ever could. And it's very, very exciting.
Hello, this is Trace Atkins. Get inspired at battlefields.org.